Hi everyone. I'm going to read you a story today. I've got a story for you. I don't think I've read it before. It's called The Smartest Giant in Town. And then at the end, I've got a little game for you to play. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. But one day George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes. So he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. "Now I'm the smartest giant in town," he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. "It made a wonderful scarf." "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming untucked anyway," he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. "It made a magnificent sail." "Thank you," said the goat. George strode on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks with the diamonds up the sides. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said, as the fox snuggled in. "It made a very fine sleeping bag." "Thank you," said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's the bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said as he laid it down over the bog. "It made an excellent path." "Thank you," said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself. "My tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but my trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, "I'll have to go back to the shop and get some more clothes," he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. "Oh no," cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. "My gown!" he yelled. "My dear old gown and sandals!" George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I am the cosiest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. "Come on, George," they said, "open it." George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, "You gave your scarf to a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town." That's the end. Did you think the giant looked better in his smart clothes or his comfy clothes? You decide. What I'd really like you to try and do is get your mummies or your daddies or your grannies or whoever to time you and see how quickly you can put on your smartest clothes in town. And then quickly see how long it takes you to take them off again. Keep playing that game, see if you can do it as quick as you can. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.